for? What'd you get, JonBenét? Oh!
Look at that! You can go places now. Do it again.
It was supposed to be a joyful Christmas, but inside the Ramsey home, something unthinkable happened. A ransom note, a shattered window, a little girl was brutally silenced. Nearly 30 years later, the murder of JonBenét Ramsey remains one of the most haunting and twisted mysteries in American history. A case full of contradictions, shattered lives, and secrets that refuse to stay buried. The Ramsey family was living a peaceful and lavish life in Boulder, Colorado. John Ramsey, a thriving businessman, had a net worth of $6 million. He had just sold off his successful company, Access Technologies, to Lockheed Martin. His wife, Patsy, was a former beauty queen and a stay-at-home mother who looked after their 2 kids, a daughter, JonBenét, 6, and a son, Burke, 9. Their home was often filled with laughter, guests, and influential people from Boulder. But everything changed on Christmas night, 1996, bringing an ill fate to the entire household. After celebrating Christmas at a friend's house, both parents, along with their child, JonBenét, made it back to their house. Little JonBenét had already slept in the car. Her parents carefully carried her to her bedroom upstairs. The family had planned to visit their second home on Lake Michigan the next morning, so both John and Patsy went to bed early. But by the end of the next day, their lives would turn upside down. Patsy woke up at around 5 a.m. to prepare for their trip. As she headed to the kitchen, something caught her eye along the staircase. It was a stack of papers, a 3-page ransom note. The letter claimed that JonBenét had been kidnapped and demanded the ransom of $118,000, a sum which was somewhat near John's recent bonus. The letter also threatened to kill the girl if the kidnappers didn't get their demanded money on time. They had set the timeline for the next day, December 27th.
And I started to read it, and it was addressed to John. It said, Mr. Ramsey. And it said, we have your daughter. And it just wasn't registering. And I may have gotten through another sentence, like, I can't, we have your daughter, and I don't know if I got any further than that.
After reading the dreadful letter, Patsy screamed and called out for John. Both of them rushed toward JonBenét's bedroom, but it was empty and she was nowhere to be found. Seeing no other option, the fearful parents called 911 in panic at around 5:25 a.m. Just after a few minutes, the police arrived at their place, trapping them into what would eventually become a controversial crime scene in American history.
Police, what's going on? 15th Street. What's going on there, ma'am? We have a kidnapping. Hurry, please. Explain to me what's going on, okay? There's a note left and our daughter's gone. A note was left and your daughter is gone? How old is your daughter? 6 years old. She's gone. 6 years old. How long ago was it? I don't know. I just found the note. And my daughter's gone. Does it say who took her? What? Does it say who took her? I don't know. There's a ransom note here. It's a ransom note? It says SBTC. Victory.
The police noticed that there weren't any signs of an intruder in the house. No broken locks and no shattered windows. No footprints on the snow blanket outside the house. However, what would happen next over the hours would later be seen as a stack of mistakes. The police allowed the friends and family members to walk around the house during the investigation. No areas in the house were restricted. The potential evidence may have been touched, tampered with, or even destroyed, all in plain sight. At the same time, John was arranging the ransom amount. A family friend, John Fernie, went to the local bank to collect the money. But it was all for nothing because, by the end, JonBenét would be found dead in the same house. Later that afternoon, a detective asked Fleet White, a close friend of the Ramseys, to help John in searching the house and look for any unusual signs. John and Fleet moved to the stairs and reached the quiet and cold basement. They walked past the bathroom, the train room, and then opened the door to a windowless wine cellar. It was a breaking point for John, who never imagined witnessing something so horrifying. They saw little JonBenét lying motionless on the cold floor of the cellar. Her small body was wrapped in a white blanket. Her body was full of signs of horror. In a heartbreaking moment, John picked her up and carried her upstairs.
Likewise, the police and investigators have assured us that this is a case which can be solved. You know, you may be eluding the authorities for a time, but God knows who you are, and we will find you.
JonBenét was then taken to a forensic facility to carry out her autopsy, which showed that she had suffered a head injury, and her death was the result of strangulation. The manner of strangulation seemed to be quite professional, carried out in the same way as a sailor, military personnel, or someone with experience. The police couldn't shake off the idea that John was once a sailor. The rest of the findings were just as disturbing. It came to light that JonBenét was assaulted with a paintbrush, which was later found to be one of Patsy's art supplies that was discovered inside the house. The top of the paintbrush was missing and could not be found, even after searching the entire house. Then came the details about her last meal. She had apparently eaten pineapple before her passing. A bowl of pineapple with a spoon was discovered at the kitchen table. When asked, both John and Patsy claimed that they never gave JonBenét pineapple. The detail was small, but still frightening to some extent. In addition to that, the DNA of an unknown male was found in JonBenét's nails and her undergarments. The DNA didn't match John Ramsey. It also didn't match with any other family members. That DNA led officers nowhere, even after they collected dozens of samples. The FBI also ran the DNA against their database to look for any offenders, but it didn't help either. There was no record. The ransom note found in the house was the prime evidence for the case. The police officers quickly cracked the code and found that the note wasn't brought from outside, but was written using Ramsey's own kitchen's Sharpie pen and a notepad. This alone pointed to the startling fact that the kidnapper had taken the time to write the note. The second thing that confused the detectives was the ransom amount. It was strangely less than what this wealthy family could have given to anyone in exchange for their beloved daughter. Another theory that came around was that the amount was eerily close to a financial record on John's home computer, which was a liability of $1,118,000. The other thing that caught police officers off guard was that the note not only mentioned the ransom amount, but also detailed how the ransom amount could be handed to them, breaking it down into hundreds, 20s, and 10s. Then, a full-blown investigation was launched into the note's authorship. Detectives collected over 60 handwriting samples from different individuals, including John, Patsy, Burke, John's older children from a previous marriage, friend Fleet White, the neighborhood Santa Claus, Bill McReynolds, Joe Barnhill, and others. Handwriting experts cleared John of any suspicion as his writing was way different from the one on the note. But when it came to Patsy, things got a bit twisted. Despite getting 5 different samples from her writing, the detectives couldn't tell if she had written that note, but they couldn't clear her out either. Patsy became the only family member who was present at the house on the night of her daughter's disappearance, which raised red flags, and no other matches came out, but it was just the beginning. The investigators noticed that after JonBenét's passing, Patsy's handwriting had changed a bit. Boulder Police Department's investigator Steve Thomas later said, "The most significant evidence in this case was the pen, the pad, the ransom note, and the handwriting." Following 18 months of constant investigation, Thomas's team shared the evidence and findings with the district attorney. Shockingly, after filtering 73 writing samples, Patsy's sample couldn't be removed from the list. Steve Thomas was highly frustrated with the situation. He could feel that the justice was slipping away, and therefore, he ended up resigning from the police department. He later wrote a book detailing the evidence and why he thinks Patsy Ramsey was guilty in JonBenét's case. It was obvious that the person who had kidnapped JonBenét was also the murderer. After reviewing everything, he was convinced that it was none other than Patsy's writing on the note. especially when the Ramseys were continuously refusing their part. Days after JonBenet's passing, the police searched the entire house looking for more evidence. In the basement where her body was discovered, they found a broken window. But John said he had done it himself once in the past, when he was locked inside and there was no other way out. The disturbing part came through when the officials found a perfectly intact and undisturbed spider web spun across the broken window outside. It was solid proof that no intruder had broken into the house that night. If that were the case, the spider web wouldn't be there. The sound tests were also done. It was found that the noise and any kind of sound from the basement cannot reach the upstairs master bedrooms. This meant JonBenet's cries for help and her struggles might have gone unnoticed. But one neighbor had claimed that they had heard a child's screams that night, which was later seen as a rumor. There was no investigation into the claim. The police then investigated the footprints found in the basement. They found that the footprints were quite different from Ramsey's shoes. 2 more strange footprints were also discovered throughout the cellar, but they could not match them with the Ramseys. During the search, the police also found a rope next to JonBenet's room in a guest bedroom. Again, it had no link with the Ramseys, as they had claimed. On the wine cellar door, they came across a palm print. It was faded but undeniable. Still, the print didn't match that of the Ramseys or their inner circle. From the evidence, the authorities figured that the crime scene might have been staged due to the strange, unknown footprints, foreign rope, and other eerie details. JonBenet's bed was also found to be wet, but her clothes told a different story. The kidnapper had redressed her after the accident, perhaps to hide something or to prepare her for the horror she had endured. Another catch was that Patsy and John had sworn that their son, Burke, was asleep when the tragedy unfolded. However, the 911 call told a different story. After Patsy's frantic call, the operator heard a small voice in the background asking, "What did you find?" and "What's going on?" And it was believed to be none other than Burke's. If he were awake, he might have witnessed the whole ordeal, and his parents may have been trying to cover this up. After JonBenet's body was returned to her parents, they left their house in Boulder and flew to Atlanta, Georgia, to bury her in their hometown. Though their pain and grief were overwhelming, something darker was unraveling underneath. Before they left, police invited them for an interview on December 26 and 27. The police also collected different samples of their hair, blood, and fingerprints. Assuming that the investigation was closing in on the Ramseys, their friends arranged legal counsel for the couple. The authorities had already been suspicious of the Ramseys from the beginning. The evidence and statistics showed that 9 out of 10 murders are carried out by someone inside the house. Plus, there was no forced entry, no clear footprints in the snow outside. The crime scene photos also showed that the walkway leading to the house's door was dry and clean, which was a breakthrough in the case. The crack in Ramsey's story was about to be deepened. A week later, when the Ramseys returned to Boulder, they were cooperative and submitted more samples to police, but appeared to be a bit frustrated and defensive because of the potential suspicion. Investigators noticed their unusual behavior and sensed that they had something to hide.
Absolutely. We want them to know everything possible
Everything.
that can help them.
Whatever they want, whatever anyone wants, we will cooperate.
The suspicion grew only tighter when it came to polygraph tests. For months, the couple refused to take the test and came to terms with only one condition: that they would do it under the supervision of an independent examiner. Finally, in 1998, they performed on the rather controversial test, and the results potentially showed that they were being truthful. The Boulder Police Department, however, rejected it firsthand and said the methods were inconsistent. The former police investigator, Steve Thomas, also referred to it as highly irregular. He claimed that Patsy had passed the test after 3 different attempts and 2 different examiners, which was not valid. On the other hand, the legal process in Boulder County progressed at a slow pace. A grand jury was called, which reviewed the evidence for an entire year. After studying the evidence, seeing crime scene photos and other disturbing details, The court decided not to issue any indictments. There were no clear answers, no closure. Burke Ramsey was also called before the grand jury and interviewed extensively. In one interview, Burke seemed confused and started stuttering when he was asked about that one bowl of pineapple. He was eventually cleared of any suspicions. However, Burke still remained on the radar of many because of his investigation. At the end of a long investigation, the Boulder Police Department had already interviewed 600 people, followed up on 140 potential suspects, and collected 1,400 pieces of evidence. The case file consisted of approximately 40,000 pages, yet there was still no clear lead that could bring closure. In 2008, forensic science introduced a new technology called touch DNA testing. This method was so effective that it could detect the smallest pieces of genetic material. The investigators used this method to test the pajamas that JonBenét was wearing when she was found in the wine cellar. The DNA found on pajamas matched perfectly with the previously found DNA on her clothing. Boulder County District Attorney Mary Lacey said that this matching DNA was significant in JonBenét's case. She further said that the DNA was strong evidence and might be of the person who took the life of JonBenét. Lacey also claimed that the suspicions against the Ramseys were the result of media reports, and there was no evidence against them.
To those of you who may want to ask, let me address very directly, I did not kill my daughter JonBenét. There have also been innuendos that she has been or was molested. I can tell you those were the most hurtful innuendos to us as a family.
I'm appalled that anyone would think that John or I would be involved in such a hideous, heinous crime.
She finally cleared out the Ramseys' name from the JonBenét's case. She also sent a letter to John Ramsey, apologizing for the unnecessary suspicion that had been cast on them for years, which had ruined their reputation. Still, after this, the real culprit behind JonBenét's kidnapping and murder remains a mystery to this day. Netflix's new documentary, Cold Case: Who Killed JonBenét Ramsey, came out in 2024 and got everyone talking about the case again. Many viewers were upset because the documentary didn't talk much about the early suspicions around JonBenét's parents and brother. People also felt it was unfair because it skipped important facts, like how the Ramseys hired their own lawyers and private investigators and didn't fully work with the police at first. Some people still found the documentary interesting and informative. What do you think happened in JonBenét's case? Were her parents really involved, or was it someone else? Thank you for dropping a like and a comment at the end. And as always, stay safe out there.